Growing up as a second generation African in America was challenging, to say the least. Nowadays, a lot of the childhood memories, we relive them through jokes and can really laugh about our pain through comedians like I Am Dulo, African Ape, those types of comedians that we often follow on Instagram, etc., where the scenarios that seem to be absolutely hilarious are truly our childhood memories of crazy, over the top African fathers that will not let you have a day off. I mean, you're off from school, but you're not. You still have to study. You still have to do all chores as if, it's a regular day and it's real. Or you have that mom who is forcing you to pray over term papers, in addition to studying. Just things that are just outrageous to the typical American that was literally our lives. So for me, one of the reasons why I was able to keep it together, despite being an oddball amongst my classmates, and how I was not able to socialize, go to a lot of different social events, etc., because my parents were so strict. My grandmother, who lived with us for 10 years, she really helped to nurture me through all of that. She was my rock. And, she was able to uh, kind of give me an insight to the culture of why my parents were the way that they were, which helped me to just tolerate them until I could get out and run away to college. So when she returned back to Sierra Leone, it was very tough for me, very, very tough for me. But despite that, I was committed to doing all that I could to take care of her financially now that she was back here in Sierra Leone. And so once I graduated, God blessed me with a job right out of college. And I was able to afford to send her money on a regular basis. And one of the reasons why I was able to do that, my grandmother at the time, she's a grandmother. So, she can't just get up and just go just like that. There's always somebody who needs to assist. And so my counterpart was my cousin here in Sierra Leone who ran all of her errands. I was her errand lady, person, child in the US, and he was the same for her here in Sierra Leone. So we talked, of course, on the phone when I would send codes for where they can pick up money. Eventually, afterwards, we connected on social media, primarily Facebook. And that's how we got to know each other. But not growing up together, there was always, of course, a gap in our communication because we weren't sure how we could really relate to one another. And so our common thread was my grandmother. So when she passed, it was very devastating. And our communication, for me, it became stagnant. But he was persistent, and he made sure to reach out to me and let me know, like, listen, grandma's gone, but I'm still here, and we're still family. So let's continue to be in contact. And um, I did. I did my best, to keep up with him, and he absolutely was definitely better at keeping up with me. And so imagine we come back to Sierra Leone, and I know he's here, so it's on my to-dos to reach out to him and connect. And before we can see each other, and through a scheduled visit, my sisters and my cousins and I are walking through the market, and we're looking for souvenirs. My sister has to travel, and she wants to make sure she's got all her souvenirs for friends and family back in the US. And out of the corner of my eye, I see someone. And I mean, the market, if you've never been to a market here in on the continent, just know that it is thick. Maybe you've seen footage online when people are going into the markets. Very, very, very crowded and congested. But out of all of that, I see him and I'm like, oh my God, I think that's fam. I think that's family. So I nudge my sister and she's still wrapped up in shopping. So I just leave her and walk to him. And at the same time, he's walking to me. And what an embrace. Because I'm in front of my blood, just like that. And the power of social media is, I think, underestimated. We take it for granted, especially in the US. We have so many versions of how we can communicate through social media. We have so many options. Whereas what I've learned is that here, it's pretty limited. The communication companies, cell phone companies here, they're very limited, they're expensive. I mean, quite frankly, they're ripping people off. Specifically here in Sierra Leone, it's a complete rip off. But nonetheless, you know, when you realize that people are paying way too much to be able to communicate within the country via social media, you know, through internet communication, and they're still trying, they're still making a way, despite not having as much, just to keep in connection with you. That means something. So, you know, what a moment to be able to see him, know it's him, introduce him, and, you know, kind of just, hey, this is our blood. This is us. It means so much. It really does. So recently, him and I sat down one afternoon and just, you know, talking, hanging out, um, sharing stories. Because we, of course, we share family. We didn't grow up together at all, but the family that was in the US that we do share, you know, that came back, you know, we have that common thread. So a lot of funny stories, a lot of troubling stories, because this is my family who survived the Civil War. So the amount of trauma that they have seen and have still persevered, you know, it's mind blowing to me. And so I pay attention to everything that they say, and I look at the pain, I look at their eyes when they're talking to me, because I really want to understand what they went through. You know, it's literally, it's a blessing to be able to talk about something as devastating as war and it be your past and you survived. So I don't take them for granted. And lo and behold, soon after the war, when he had first moved here into Freetown, his first landlord was my paternal grandfather. Just through our conversation, I mentioned the street name, and he just looked at me and he was like, "What?" He was like, "Wasn't there like a chief that, you know, that lived there?" And I said, "Yeah, it's my grandfather." And we just had another moment because his first, you know, we'll call it his first apartment, you know, after the war as a young adult was my grandfather. So family was still, you know, taking care of family. That is the power of family. That's the power of blood. And, you know, aside from social media, there again, you know, it's important. Social media is very powerful, but there is nothing like being able to sit down and talk to somebody face to face and solidify the connection. So my plea to you is don't take social media for granted. But furthermore, know that there is more to life outside of social media. Take it to the final step and solidify that human connection.